Bonjour, bienvenue. Welcome back to Grade 7 French. This is the second grammar and parts of speech lesson for Unité 2, Unit 2. Today, in this video, we are looking at les verbes irréguliers vouloir et pouvoir. In today's video, we are going to learn how to conjugate two important verbs, vouloir and pouvoir. These two verbs are irregular verbs since they do not follow the rules for conjugating verbs. So we are just going to have to memorize how to conjugate these verbs. And looking ahead to grade 8, we will come back and we will review these two irregular verbs. They're used quite a lot in everyday conversations in French. And even though they're irregular verbs, and so there aren't nice, neat rules to follow for conjugating these two verbs, I'm going to point out certain patterns that will help you with memorizing how to conjugate vouloir et pouvoir. All right, the verb vouloir means to want. So I filled in the conjugation chart, which you see on your screen. So I want you to take a close look at this chart and also listen to the suggestions or the observations which I'm going to point out. This will help you with absorbing this chart and how to conjugate vouloir. So if you look at je and tu, it's the exact same conjugation. Okay, we start off with V-E-U, which is odd because vouloir starts with V-O-U. So we just have to remember that for je and tu, it's V-E-U and then an X at the end. Je veux and tu veux. Okay, as we move on, il and elle are conjugated exactly the same way, and it's very similar to je and tu. Here is veut. So V-A-U-T. So almost the same as je and tu, except the difference is that instead of ending with an X, we end with a T. All right, looking at nu, this will make sense because we start off with the first half of the verb, V-O-U-L, and then we have our customary O-N-S ending for nu. For vous, it also makes sense. We start off with the first half, V-O-U-L, and then for vous, we have our customary E-Z ending. And for ils and elles, like the first subjects above, they start off with V-E-U, which helps. The L makes sense because there's an L in vouloir. And then for ils and elles, we get our standard ENT ending. So again, this is an irregular verb, so this doesn't follow the rules for other IR verbs, but if you go back and listen to what I've just said, consider these patterns, it'll really help you out. What I want you to do for now is just put the video on pause for a minute and try putting your hand over the right side of your screen and just see how many subjects you can conjugate for with vouloir. So try that out now. All right, let's move on to our second verb. Okay, and here we have pouvoir, which means to be able to. Okay, I'll spend a little bit less time with explanations here, but I just want to point out that conjugating pouvoir is very similar to conjugating vouloir. Really, the differences are you're changing the V to a P, because pouvoir starts with P. But if you look, it's really the same way to conjugate the verb for je to il and elle. Just putting a P in place of a V. Okay, when we get to nu and vous, again, they start with P, and instead of an L, there's no L in pouvoir, but there's a V. So we have a V here and here. And then we have our usual ONS and EZ endings. Okay, for ils and elles, again, very similar to vouloir, except you're starting with a V, or sorry, a P, I should say. And here's where you put your V, because there's a V in pouvoir. Okay, and then you have your ENT ending. So I want you to try the same thing. Put the video on pause. You can look at this for like 30 seconds, let's say, or a minute. Then cover the right side of the screen and see how much of pouvoir you can conjugate. So try this now. And let's continue. Okay, so now it's time to get into some practice with vouloir. Okay, so for each of these questions, you're going to conjugate the verb vouloir so that matches the subject. So for example, I've got il slash vouloir slash chanter. I'm conjugating vouloir. So subject's il. So going back to my conjugation chart, it's il veut chanter. So everything stays the same except for vouloir. So let's take a look at the first one. Je vouloir assister à un concert. I would like to help out at a concert. So we'll put in je. And then going back to my conjugation chart is je veux, V-E, U, X, assister. Okay, and just for time, I'm not going to rewrite all of the remaining words. I've done the most important job of conjugated vouloir, and these dots mean that I'm filling out the rest of the sentence. Okay, so put the video on pause for a minute so that you can try out these two questions. All right, we'll take these ones up in tomorrow's class, but for now, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to conjugate vouloir for both of these sentences. So put the video on pause now. Okay. All right, so let's practice here with both vouloir and pouvoir. For each question, you're going to conjugate both verbs to match with the subject. So, for example, il blank chanter. Okay, for vouloir is veut. Il veut chanter. He wants to sing. For second, il peut chanter. He is able to sing. I'm going to go through the third one with you. En means one or someone. Okay, and when we see en, it means the same thing as il or elle. Okay, so then for vouloir, will be en veut. And for pouvoir, if you're thinking put, you're exactly right. So please put the video on pause and try out these 4 remaining questions. All right, moving on. Okay, now let's get some practice writing each sentence in the negative form. What you do is you put your 2 words, ne and pas, around the conjugate form of vouloir. Okay, so for example, il veut chanter. He wants to sing. Changes to il ne veut pas chanter. He does not want to sing. Okay, so for un, vous voulez bouger. So we're going to write vous. Going to add the first term to make it negative, ne. Voulez can stay the same. It's already conjugated. And we put pas at the end to complete the transition to the negative form of the sentence. All right, bouger. Okay, so what you guys are going to do at home is put the video on pause so that you can try out these next two questions. All right. One more practice slide. Again, put this video on pause so that you can try out these two questions at home. All right, time for the wrap up. Okay, I'm anticipating that we are going to do a great job, as we always do, in French class as we go over the activities which were included in this video. And then you will get some time to work on your own or in pairs on a couple of pages from your cahier, your workbook. But until tomorrow's class, this concludes today's video.